Hello and welcome to the channel. In today's video I'll be covering a wing. Now many of you have seen me do this before because you're subscribers, but many people, about 60%, seem to stumble onto the channel purely by accident and they may not have seen me do this before. I'm going to be using dress lining, which is cheap and cheerful. In the UK it costs about £2.50 a square metre, so it's very cheap. But it is a little bit more involved. I hope that by showing you this video, that those people who are contemplating covering a model in a cheaper way won't be too put off. It's worth having a look. So strap in, favourite tipple in hand, and let's get busy being creative. Let's get started then. So the first thing in working with dress lining, 100% polyester, is to prep the surface, and the whole model has been given a light rub down. It's something that I always leave until I'm ready to get to this stage, because I've found that if you prep a model and then put it away, invariably you get dings and knocks and bumps and you have to redo it all over again. So I'd leave it till just before I'm ready to cover. And this is the upper wing for the Fokker D7. It's all prepped now, it's all ready. I've actually added on these areas here, just to zoom in so you can see better, a support so that the material has something to stick to, where the little lugs come through to attach the cabine struts. So you need a surface for the covering to adhere to. I've done all of those little jobs. I've gone round, made sure that there's nothing out of place. And the way that you apply this material is I use Mod Podge. Those of you who've seen me do it before, you must be just watching out of curiosity. But for some of you, I know this is a new video. You've never seen this done before. That's what I use. It's not PVA. It has additional properties that PVA don't have. It's much thicker. Somebody actually said that they believe that what's been added to it is starch. I don't know about that, but I've used it and it works, so I'll stick with it. No pun intended. You only apply it where you need the cloth to stick, so I don't need to apply it to all the ribs other than around where there's a cut in the covering to accommodate these lugs. So I'm going to go all the way around the outside, both sides. I used to do two coats, but I found that one coat is perfectly adequate. So I'll do that. You can see me starting the process. Apply it quite liberally. It soaks in, and it also has the additional function of strengthening the balsa quite substantially. Actually, you can tell once it's set. It's a bit like a sand and sealer, I suppose, in many ways. So on the sheeted area, such as this leading edge, the underside of the leading edge, I apply the Mod Podge to the whole of the surface, because when it comes to actually ironing it on and reactivating the glue, I approach it slightly differently than I would if it was an open framed area. So I'll carry on and go all the way around the edges, and when I'm ready to apply the covering, we'll cut to that and then I'll explain where we go from there. So, well, this is Missy. I'm trying to cut out the panels to cover the wing, and my little helper's decided that I need to weigh down the cloth while I'm cutting it. Is she going to move? Don't think so. Well, after a little bit of help from my assistant Missy, we're ready to start covering the lower side of the wing. The Mod Podge is dried. You can leave that for days, it doesn't make any difference, because it's the work of the iron which reactivates the glue. Now, when I have posted videos in the past regarding this technique, I've often got questions about what temperature it's set at. Well, I don't actually have a fancy iron, as you can see. Bought second hand at a swap meet, and I set it just beyond the middle heat to actually tack it on to the surface. So we're ready to go. It's a little bit awkward the underside because we have the fixing points for the cabin and the struts to deal with. So what I'm going to do is tack it on the long axes first, or start to tack it on the long axes first, and then make a slot to push the covering over. That's always a little bit awkward, but we'll see how we do. You'll notice that I've left quite a generous overhang. That's because this material stretches really well, and you can pull it as you're working it. And the trick I've found to get a good finish is to basically get it as taut as possible without the application of heat to shrink it. So the first thing I'm going to do is fix it at this end with a little application of heat. And you'll notice I've done the end rib. It's the only rib, the only ribs that I've done the end ribs. The rest don't need glue. There's no need for them. So I can pull that tight, and I'm going to try and cut that. I've got a brand new blade in here. Still going to be a little bit awkward, I think. Because I have to get it past the nut as well as the actual metal that it's on. And as I say, this is the most awkward part of the job. Once this is done, the rest should be fairly straightforward. There we go. There we go, I've got that passed, have I? Yeah, I've managed to get that round, and I've also applied some Mod Podge around these so that I can fix them. And if I find this is slack, I can reapply heat and pull it, which I may well do. And that's going on nicely. Just want to check, get close and see, yeah. Just checking that I've got it all the way around. Puckered a little bit there, but I'm sure that'll pull out. I'll work it out. And I'm also applying some heat to the front here, the sheeted area. And when it comes to the sheeting, it's best to start from the edge and work across in one movement. I think you get a better finish that way. So these panels here are now in place. Next thing I'm going to do is try and pull it a little bit more taut. This is all being done in one go because there's no dihedral on this lower wing. I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat there. There you go. And I'll cut this one. And cut this one and pull it tight this way as well. Although this is a brand new blade, well, newish, I put it in about 10 minutes ago, I have cut some balsa with it, so I may change the blade, because the trick to this game, you must have a sharp blade. You're fighting a losing battle if you try to do the job with a blunt one. So even though this is relatively new, well, in fact it is new, it's probably not enough for what I wanted to do. There you go. As I say, it's a little bit awkward, this part of the job, because I've got to go around these you get the general idea. And these are the exit points for the aileron servo wires, and they'll be fed down the cabine, down this cabine on the underside, and painted in with the cabine, and they'll go through a slot there. And I want them to be independent so that I can put differential through onto the model. Find it's really useful when you come to be working with biplanes to be able to do that. Now that's not bad at all, I'm quite happy with that. So I'll fix this point here, just along the edge. And then put a little bit of tension on, take it this way. There we go. And that's about as awkward as it gets, getting around those points. I'll carry on with this, and then I'll show you the next phase, or the next part of the process in working with this material. Back in a mo. Sorry, I didn't realise I'd left it on the cabine. So you can see there, I mean, that's not perfect, but that will come out with the heat gun. It's just advantageous to get as much of the creases out as possible before you resort to the heat gun. That's going on nicely. I'll pull taut to the next set and cut, and then, as I say, we'll come back when it's ready to do the next stage of the process. I thought you might like to see this part of the process. I'm actually just wrapping the covering round, and then what I'll do is I'll take a razor blade, I have changed it now, and run it along the edge here. And then the process, the next part of the process, I seal all of the edges with full strength dope. And the reason for that is it helps do the final finish and prevents the covering from pulling when I shrink it. So it just wraps round, as you can see. Now when you get to the ends with the surplus, you can pull and it contours, oops, excuse me, contours really well to the compound shapes that you're trying to go around. So I'll carry on with this, and then we'll be ready for phase 2. Okay, ready for the top level now. Now, I've just weighed a panel of cloth, and it weighs in at 28 grams. And that's obviously not allowing for the offcuts. So I think there's less than 60 grams of weight being added to this wing thus far. Of course, it has to be doped and painted and so on, but I still think that's a favourable weight for a model of this size. I'm sorely tempted to use it on smaller models because I think it's doable. Anyway, that's a different issue. So what I've done, if you look here, you can see that I've laid in the cables for the ailerons, and they'll run down the cabines, as I said earlier on. And I've checked that they work before I seal them in, so to speak, because getting them out of here is going to be a bit of a task. Could be done by just cutting a panel out, of course. And I've got out of worse situations when I've lost these inside a model, twice, in fact, but I don't want to repeat it. So what I've done, I've sealed around the edges with dope, and I've given it an extra coat of Mod Podge over the top. That's so that I can seal this coating on. Then what I'm going to do once it's on is seal it with dope again, let it dry, and then I find the application of the iron produces a really smooth finish. So this one should be more straightforward because there's nothing to cut through for the attachment points. It's a straightforward application of the covering. That being the case, tell us if I turn the thing on. Right, the iron's on. While it's heating up, we'll just get this laid in position. I like to leave a generous amount over because it helps when you're pulling things square and getting things the way you want them. There we go. And we're just about ready to begin now. The general rule with all covering is the longitudinal side first and then across. And that's what I'm going to do here. As I say, this should be a more straightforward application for the reasons that I've already described. Okay, just pause it while the iron heats up and then we'll get started. The iron should have heated up enough now, so here we go. And as I did on the underside, I've only really applied the glue where it's necessary. And in this case, it's obviously just round the edges. So I'll flip it round and pull the panel, if not mega tight, just fairly taut. Because the more you can get the wrinkles out now, the more room it gives you later on. Then I go to the centre. That's what I've just done there. And working out towards the edge, seal that. The only awkward thing with this, of course, is the size of the wing panel. It's a big panel to cover in one go. You can see I'm putting a bit of tension on there. And I think it needs tack here. And a tack opposite. Tack here, working out, and then a tack opposite, and that's basically the procedure, working out, pulling down, I'm going to work all the way around like this, get this sealed off, then I'll cut and dope the edges, and then I'll show you what happens when you run the iron over the doped edge, and then we'll be ready to shrink it with the heat gun. Here you can see how I work the tip, so I'm just working around. This is why the surplus material comes in handy. And then pull down, and this will actually stretch quite well around compound curves. In fact, I think it stretches very well. When I covered the Junkmeister in this, I covered the whole fuselage in 2 pieces of material. And if you're thinking, well, so what? Have a look at the Junkmeister fuselage and you'll see why that's quite remarkable. And that was using this material. It stretches really well when you're pulling it round. Just apply a little bit of heat, a little bit of force at the same time. And there you go. All the way around the tip, without having to resort to a separate piece. Right, I'll trim this up, tidy it up, and then I'll show you what it looks like. The dope doesn't take long to dry, and once it has, I fire up the iron again, and I've found that you get a nice smooth finish, although you do end up with a dirty iron that you have to clean afterwards. If you rub it along, it smooths out. I'll turn it up just a touch. It gives you a nice smooth finish because you're melting the dope. So I'll go all the way along the whole model doing that, and then we'll be ready to shrink it tight. This is always a nice feeling, getting to the end part of the process. I suppose it's a bit like hanging the final length of wallpaper. I feel like I've achieved something this morning, so let's get it shrunk. Start from the centre and work out is the general rule. This gets very hot. It's a paint stripper, so you don't leave it in one place too long. You will burn this. Just watch what it's doing. You can see that that's produced a nice taut finish. Swivel it round. Don't know if I can stand it up a little bit for you so you can see it better. That's the underside taut. Something I forgot to do is, whoops, good job the lid was on, is to seal round the hatches. So I'll iron those down to the Mod Podge, because I did apply some Mod Podge here. And then later on, once everything's covered and doped, I'm going to cut those out. But I'll leave them in situ. I'll not cut them out until I need to. The iron's a little bit sticky because I've been applying it over dough, which isn't ideal. But there you go, and then I'll flick it over and do this side. Tricks to keep it moving. Don't leave the gun on too long. And particularly pay attention if you're going over sheeted areas, because the heat is transferred in a different manner. Turn it round. Why do I build such big models? I don't know. There we have it. I'm pleased with that. Good morning's work. It's gone into the afternoon now, but never mind. There we go. One wing covered. A total weight I estimated below 600 grams. Of course, it hasn't been doped yet. I normally do 2 coats of 50-50 thin down dope and then a spray on of whichever colour scheme I'm going to go with. Still undecided. I'm worse than the wife when she's selecting shoes for an outfit. But there you go. Dress lining. It's cheap, it's cheerful, and it's easy to work with. I think it is. Of course, I've done a few surfaces now with it, but it's no more difficult than I would say iron-on covering, once you accept that you've got to put some Mod Podge on first. Other than that, it handles really well. In fact, because there's no dope on it, I think you can stretch it a lot more. Anyway, if you've enjoyed that and found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. That'll get more like videos for of this ilk that you might enjoy, and it also helps me a bit. Take care, folks. Remember, get creative.